leave your name or leave where you're coming in from in the chat. If you have any questions, you can ask it in the Q&A. You can also ask it in the chat. It's just easier for us to see in the Q&A, and we'll get to those questions at the end of the presentation. So welcome, and yeah, let us know where you're coming from. Always love to find out where our guests are coming. Oh, hi, Patrick. Did you see that, Patrick? Someone saying hi. Do you know this person?
Hello, Bonnie. How are you doing?
Oh, from Decorating Den. Wow, that's great. So
well in Tennessee.
What's that?
Saying I hope everything's going well in Tennessee.
Yeah, Tennessee. I've only been there once, and it was kind of more of a pass through than a stay, which I regret, but I was younger.
Yeah.
It'll have to be put on the back burner for now, but it's definitely on the bucket list to go.
Yeah, I went to school over in Tennessee, so really enjoy that part of the country.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, very good. We got some more people coming in, which is great. Hey everyone, welcome. I'm sitting here having a little chit chat for now with Patrick Shelton. I'll formally introduce him once everybody arrives, but for now, oh, Bonnie's asking, where did you go? What school?
I went to Sewanee, in between Chattanooga and Nashville. So spent 4 years there and would love to go back some days.
Right, yeah. I bet. Now, are all the kids going back to school and university too, or because our universities here in Ontario are all online until I think January, but public schools are going back to school.
Yeah, a lot of them around here anyway have gone back. Some have stopped and gone to remote learning, but some are still going. So I think it's different from school to school, but
right.
I think they all attempted to go back anyway.
Yeah, I think depending on where it is. I was talking to one of our brand ambassadors in Portland, and they had attempted to go back and then had a little bit of a pullback, but I mean, you've got to try and start slow and just be cautious and try and get back to some sense of normal anyway. So welcome everyone. I'm here with Patrick Shelton, and Patrick and I are going to be chatting today about performance fabrics, and we're going to talk today about performance in a way we know it. I think from our perspective in the industry, we think of it as fabrics that are cleanable and that repel and so on, but performance can mean many things to many people, and Patrick is going to help us understand and kind of navigate through that. And this is a really, Patrick, you and I have had conversations. This is a really big topic, and it remains to be a really big topic for people because, sometimes the marketing that's done can be a little bit misleading in that, they think that the fabric is kind of the savior and you can, mistreat it or it'll last forever, it won't get dirty, or there's kind of all this stuff around what performance is. And I'm so excited to have you here because obviously I know you and I know how smart you are, but you just you put it in a way that makes so much sense to the designer, and there still really is a certain level of accountability on the designer side to make sure that they're doing all their due diligence to make sure that the fabric is right for their customer. So yeah, so Patrick's going to talk all about that, and we're going to get started in just a few minutes. We're just going to let a few more people kind of hop in here, and while we're waiting, please feel free to leave your name in the chat. Let us know where you're coming from. We always like to hear from people all over. Typically, we get people from Halifax we've got someone here from Nashville, usually California and Texas. So we're always excited to hear. We've got someone here from San Jose, California, which is exciting. And Yeah, and then if you have any questions, you can certainly leave that in. There's a Q&A, so put your questions there. You can also ask them on the chat. It's just easier for us to answer them and address them in the Q&A. So if you don't mind putting them there, that would be wonderful. We're going to address all your questions at the end because I'm pretty sure Patrick's going to answer a lot of those questions along the way. We have Melissa as well from New Jersey. And Melissa, Patrick, I think you may know, Melissa is our Vice President of Contract at JF.
Awesome.
So
Welcome,
yeah,
Melissa.
I think we have a mutual connection. So
Awesome.
anyway, so she's joining us because obviously a lot of this performance pertains to contract as well. Yes, not just residential. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So, okay, well, it's 2 o'clock and it's just after 2. And so thank you all for coming. We're going to have a lot more people coming in, but we're going to get started because I respect everybody's time who's joined us so far. And certainly Patrick is a very busy man, so we respect his time as well. So I'm really excited to introduce Patrick Shelton. He is the International Textile Alliance board member, as well as a trainer, really I would say the trainer for InsideOut and Crypton Home. So Patrick travels all over educating people on performance fabric, and not just performance. That's kind of the question that we're asking is, what does performance fabric mean? So Patrick, I'm going to have you maybe give a little bit of your background, and then I'm going to open up the presentation and we can kind of chat while we're looking at that. So I'll leave it over to you.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you for having me. It is an honor and a privilege to do this webinar with you and talk about the specifics around performance fabrics. Performance fabrics are growing and being demanded now more than ever, but as anything grows, there's an influx of new products, and as you mentioned, some great marketing that tell a little bit different story than what the fabrics actually can stand up to. So we're going to kind of debunk some of that and talk through specifics of various performance brands that you may be familiar with, and ask the question, what is performance and how can you get your customer the right type of performance fabrics for whatever their lifestyle requirements are. So I've been in the textile industry for 10 years now, and have worked with Lisa and JF and put a lot of great performance programs together. So I'm excited to talk specifics around performance and answer any questions that you have.
Great. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Patrick, you let me know when you can see the screen.
I can see it.
Okay, perfect. So let me just, oh, this is doing something weird. There we go. Okay, so Patrick is going, that's a really big, you're going to disband the myth. So tell us, wise one, tell us all about performance fabrics. So Patrick, I think the biggest issue is really, what we were chatting about earlier, which is, what are the differences between all the different brands? And, in its entirety, is performance just about cleanability? So, I mean, I just asked you two pretty big questions, so you can tackle them as you see fit.
All right. I'm going to apologize for my Southern accent. So if you can't understand me, please just leave a question and we'll try to get it at the end. But, performance as a high level term is so confusing because it means so many different things to different people. And quite honestly, it can change from project to project depending on the lifestyle requirements of your customer. But cleanability is certainly one of the major pillars of performance. However, when we talk performance, we really break it down into 4 different categories or pillars, if you will. Cleanability is certainly one of them. Another one is durability. another is fade resistance, and another is liquid resistance. And we've asked a lot of questions at retail and to design, trying to understand what performance means to them, because there are a lot of great brands and performance products in the market, but they all focus and specialize in various aspects of performance that I just mentioned. Some are more durable than others. Some offer fade resistant technology and can go indoors or out. Some repel your liquids, some are bleach cleanable, some are more environmentally conscious. So there's so many different aspects or variables when you talk about quote unquote performance. It's kind of a black hole and means so many different things that has created so much confusion in the marketplace. So, Lisa just pulled up a great slide here that really highlights a lot of the performance brands that are available through JF. And really, they're the most recognizable and identifiable performance brands in the industry. But each of them really specialize in various aspects of performance. So some focus on the durability aspect, and that is really yarn-based. And then some focus on a chemistry or technology to add liquid repellency and cleanability. And then some offer a dual hybrid where they offer durability through the yarns and cleanability through a topical treatment, if you will. So they achieve performance in a variety of ways and also specialize in various aspects of performance. So as we go through today, I think the one takeaway is that whatever performance means to you or your customer, JF has a great performance option that can suit the needs of your client, regardless of what that means to them.
And just so you know, I'm not paying Patrick to say that. So
no, I'm an independent contractor here.
So Patrick, I think one of the most common misconceptions is, performance means that it's UV as well, that it's both meant for inside and outside. But we know that of these brands that we see here, there's only a few of them that actually can kind of boast that.
Right. Yeah. So, before we get into the fade resistance aspect, performance as a whole does not under any circumstance mean bulletproof or indestructible or self-cleaning. These products and these brands are going to offer a higher level of performance and help protect your investment and your customer's investment in a new sofa or chair or pillows to allow for a longer lifespan of this product. Formal living and formal dining are not as prevalent as they used to be, and people live life on their living room sofa and they spill at the dinner table, and they want products that can go in a sunroom. A lot of new builds have natural light, so fade resistance is important. So, these brands are engineered to offer a level of protection, but certainly cannot resist everything that's possibly thrown at it, and they're not bulletproof. So I think that's the most important thing when talking to your client is managing the expectations of the specific brand. But the second is understanding what each performance product or brand is engineered to do. So as Lisa mentioned, just because something is labeled as performance does not mean that it offers fade resistant technology to it. So on this slide right here, Belladura, Sunbrella, and InsideOut Performance Fabrics all tout indoor-outdoor capabilities, meaning that they offer a level of resistance to UV rays, meaning that they won't lose their color and that they won't degrade over time outdoors. So does that answer your question, Lisa?
Yes, it does. Thank you. Thank you. And we might get to this later, Patrick, so you tell me whether you want me to go to the next slide or not. But with, even within these three brands that you mentioned that are outdoor, there are some pretty key differences between all three. So it's not like you even have to consider what the needs are for the consumer to choose even from those three brands, correct?
Absolutely. And it really gets into the fiber content and the makeup of each product and brand. And with these and with any indoor outdoor product, it all starts at the yarn level. The yarn has to be engineered to be suitable to to outdoor light or to UV rays so that it doesn't break down over time and so that it doesn't lose their color. Each of those brands go about it in a very different way. Belladura is 100% olefin or polypropylene. Sunbrella is 100% solution dyed acrylic, and InsideOut Performance Fabrics are a blend of polypropylene and high energy dyed polyester. So outside of the performance characteristics, each of them offer a broad range of different looks and different aesthetics that you can get with different yarns. So, you know, each yarn has its positives and negatives. Each of those are really good for indoor, outdoor applications. But some yarns naturally wear better than others. You know, Sunbrella is widely known for using solution dyed acrylic, which is the premium yarn for outdoor application. The reason for that is because it offers the highest level of resistance to fading with their color fastness. So that is one thing, and they've had products for you know, awnings and outdoor furniture for a long time. But just like that's one of their positives, there are negatives that accompany any yarn. So Belladura and InsideOut, while they don't offer the fade resistant strength that Sunbrella does, they may offer a little bit different aesthetic because they're not using acrylic yarns. So they may offer more strength in terms of durability. So, you know, there's a little give and take with each of them, but I think understanding what the brand stands for, how it's engineered from a fiber level, and then understanding and using the tools available that each of them provide can help get your customer the performance product that is most appropriate. So I think that's critical in addition to the design and aesthetic that each brand represents and offers.
Wonderful. And then just before we move on to talking about cleaning, and this kind of actually segues nicely into cleaning, I know that both, you know, while some of these performance brands have that liquid repellency, not all of them do. So for example, FiberGuard and Sustain don't have that liquid repellency, which isn't a bad thing. It's just different than Crypton Home and InsideOut and some of the others.
Right. You know, that's really the wow factor for a lot of people. I've met someone that's used it as a party trick before, but we don't encourage that, by the way. But if you spill your wine, or if you spill your coffee or your tea or whatever it may be, a lot of fabrics offer liquid repellency, so it beads up and rolls off and helps prevent the stain from happening in the first place. But again, no two fabrics and none of these brands are created the same with the same focus on different performance attributes. So right. Sustain and FiberGuard achieve performance in a different manner, where the yarn offers a high level of performance. They don't have the same technology on it to repel the liquids, but the yarn is inherently cleanable with various solutions depending on what the stain is. So, you know, that wasn't a focus of that brand. So it's really important to understand what brand you're shopping and what the characteristics are, so that someone doesn't spill their red wine trying to impress a guest and it soaks right in. Because
well, I'll tell you, but Patrick's talking about a story I've shared with him in the past, where when we did our first Crypton Home collection, my mother fell in love with one of the patterns, and so we put it on her chairs. And she, when I went over there, it was a holiday and there were guests over, and I don't think she quite understood what that meant to have that fabric on there. And so, you know, I made her take off the throw that she had covered on the chair because she was afraid it was going to get dirty. And then I proceeded to take my red wine and say that I didn't like the chair and throw my red wine on the chair. Well, my poor mother almost had a heart attack, but of course it was Crypton Home and it beat it up. The problem, though, that I didn't tell you yesterday is that I threw a little bit too much red wine and it beaded up and started to run off the chair and onto the rug, which thankfully I was able to stop. But that's one of the things we say about FiberGuard and Sustain, where, you know, sometimes beating up can't always be a good thing. You know, in that case, it would have been nice for it to soak in and me get it off that way. So I think they all kind of have their pros and cons, but I would agree Crypton Home, it's a great marketing tool to be able to show people the value of, you know, kind of how it works, and Inside Out as well. So speaking of that, let's move on to cleaning. So, you know, Patrick, I know there's a lot of confusion about how to clean these performance fabrics. I know they vary, but maybe you can give us some general ideas of what that looks like and what to do.
Yeah, so general rule of thumb, do not overreact and freak out and get a tire brush and try to rub the stain out. You've got to remember that of each of the brands that you saw, they're all decorative textiles first and foremost. And if you want to rub a hole in it, you certainly can. But each of them will suggest that the first step is to simply get some water and to blot and to get the excess dirt or spill off of it so that it doesn't penetrate the fabric even further. And then from there, each brand, depending on the fiber makeup and depending on what type of product it is, can kind of go in different directions in how to clean it. But a majority of them promote simple spot cleaning, which with a general soap and water solution, a Tide or a Dawn, an enzyme-based detergent. I encourage you to let the detergent break down the stain and do its work. I think that's really hard for people, me included, because you want the instant gratification and satisfaction that I got the stain out. But sometimes, you know, no two fabrics and no two brands are created equal, but no two stains are created equal also. Some are naturally more difficult than others. Lipstick and mustard-based stains are going to be more difficult than water-based stains. So sometimes it's best to rinse, walk away, come back, simply blot, and then rinse and repeat. You know, one important step is to rinse all of the soap out once you have cleaned it, because if you don't get the soap out, soap attracts dirt, and ultimately you're going to have a really dirty spot there because the soap's going to pull in a lot of dirt over time if you don't rinse it out. And then some brands, specifically the Sunbrella, the Belladura, and the InsideOut, they are all bleach cleanable, so you can use a diluted bleach solution on that product. So that's certainly not the first step in any manner, but I think it offers a peace of mind for a lot of customers, knowing that if something happens and your kid's running around with a Sharpie or whatever it may be, that you can use a diluted bleach solution to help get out even more severe stains. But again, that goes back to understanding, you know, what the product is and how it's intended to perform and how to clean that specific one, because, you know, Crypton Home is a great product. It's the gold standard for decorative indoor performance fabrics, but it's not bleach cleanable. If you clean it with bleach, you're going to take some of the color out of the fabric because of the way it's engineered. That's certainly not a fault, but it's a reality of that performance product. So, you know, there are specifics, and each brand does a great job of promoting how to clean their specific products. But the one thing I would encourage is just annual maintenance of your sofa. Just because you bought a performance fabric does not mean that it's not going to get dirty or that it can't get dirty. It can and it will get dirty. But with regular maintenance, it's important to vacuum and to flip cushions and to take care of it just like you would anything else that you invest in, and it will promote and support the longevity of your piece of furniture, and ultimately be easier to clean when and if a stain does happen. So, you know, that's I think a pretty common misconception around performance fabrics is the fact that they can't get dirty. They certainly can, but when and if that does happen, you can rest assured and have the peace of mind that each brand can be clean in its own respective way.
Right. Wonderful. I know we're going to get tons of questions. I think we already have, but we're going to answer your questions at the end. So please hold tight, and we promise we'll get to each and every one of you. So Patrick, you know, we're talking about performance, primarily, I think, meaning either UV or cleanability to most people in the industry, you know, in terms of designers and people using the product. And certainly to the end user, I think performance means that it's kind of a one one solution fits all, and it's really not. So, you know, along with performance, I think a lot of people think that performance means cleanability, but also, like you said, indestructible. So, you know, high double rubs, it won't pill, it won't, you know, all of those things. And that's not necessarily true. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about those things, and the need to be for designers to be looking at those other things when they're selecting fabrics for their customers. And when we talk about specifications, yes, performance is key, but you know, we're also talking about abrasion, pilling, things like seam slippage, like knowing when to back the fabric, when not to. Um, and you know, you spoke about color fastness, you know, fabrics that will fade or fabrics that won't fade. And so, you know, it's really important to look at that. So we've got kind of just a little image of what these things look like, and maybe you can enlighten us on you know, what's a suitable abrasion rating for various types of applications. So I know the biggest myth is, you know, everyone thinks they need the higher the better. And I think it's not necessarily true.
It is certainly not true, but it gets into understanding the application of where something's going to understand what type of abrasion requirements there are. And an abrasion test, a Weizenbeek test or Martindale are industry standard testing methods that we use. And it's really intended to emulate someone getting up and sitting down on a piece of furniture. How frequently can you do that before the fibers break? And generally in the residential market, 15,000 has been considered high wear and heavy duty. 30,000 was the baseline for contract grade or heavy duty double rubs for a long time. As polyurethanes and vinyls and things like that came into the market, I think it skewed a lot of people's understanding of textiles versus non-woven products like that, because some of them went hundreds of thousands of double rubs.
Right.
So, you know, I know ACT standards have moved to 50,000 double rubs, which is extreme. That is a very durable piece of fabric. So, you know, I think it's really important not to get carried away by numbers. The industry associations have their various specifications outlined based on really understanding of how much something is going to be used in a specific setting. Certainly for residential, if you go through 30,000 double rubs on a sofa, I think it's time to get a new one.
Well, that's what I say. They're going to get tired of it before it wears out. Yeah, because I think, you know, we at JF tell our customers, you know, you're really limiting your choice when you're, you know, only looking for 100,000 double rubs and up. And, you know, contract aside, anything between 15 for kind of medium, I guess. And then, you know, if it's for example, in my home, we have one area where everybody sits all the time. And, you know, that maybe you'd want to look at 20 to 25, but you certainly wouldn't need any more than that, I wouldn't imagine. So, you know, would you agree that people are kind of limiting their aesthetic choice based on their thought of needing higher double rubs?
Absolutely. I think that just as you mentioned, 15 has been for a long time considered medium to heavy duty. 30,000 certainly is more than appropriate for any residential heavy traffic setting, and 50,000 for contract, which is, you know, hotels and hospitality areas that generate a lot more traffic than a standard living room. Unless you've got a lot more friends than I do. But so that's, I think that's a really good point. I don't think you need to limit your options based on that, because the fact of the matter is those products have performed very well for a long period of time. And generally non-woven fabrics are going to go more because they don't have the same weave structure that fabrics do.
Right. Moving on to pilling. This is something that, we deal with a lot. And, Patrick, I'd love for you to shed some light on this because a lot of people think that pilling is a flaw. And the truth of the matter is that almost all fabrics pill. It's just the rate in which they pill. Something that's got a high rating, it probably will pill, but it's not seen to the common eye. So can you shed some light on this for us?
Sure. This is something that we get asked about frequently. And again, it really boils down to the understanding the type of yarn that makes up a fabric. Um, Again, all yarns have their positive and negative characteristics. Some may be really strong in terms of color fastness, but are not as strong in the durability aspect, and they are more inclined to pill. Whether it's in a sweater or whether it's in, a piece of furniture in a home textile, it's going to pill. Pilling is not considered a fabric failure, and oftentimes they can be cleaned with a standard shaver to clean it up like it never happened. A lot of fabrics have an element of fuzz on them, and oftentimes when people kind of pull their throw or their blanket over it, it can attract some of those foreign fibers where it appears that the fabric's breaking down, but in reality, it's grabbing foreign fibers from this throw and putting little balls on the sofa, which again can all be cleaned up. But I understand the perception of making an investment and thinking something's wrong with the product. But generally, after and Lisa and I talked about it yesterday. Acrylic and wool are going to pill and wear differently than a polyester, which is different than a cotton. So it's really important to understand the fiber makeup, and also the weave structure of any given fabric, because even if we use one yarn and one fabric versus another fabric, the engineering of that product is going to allow for it to perform a little bit differently.
Right. So what would you say if someone really doesn't want to deal with pilling at all, then what would you say would be an appropriate rating that they would select?
So in the industry rating, it's a 1 to 5 scale. 3 is passing. 4 is very strong. 5 is very rarely do you see things get 5s. They are really, really tightly woven. In developing any fabric, there's a fine line between trying to make something bulletproof and trying to make something really decorative and really beautiful. And finding that middle ground is often not the challenge, but it's part of the process. So, look, 3 is industry acceptable. If there's an issue or a problem or a concern, I would ask for the pill rating, and 4 and 5 give you a better chance of not having to deal with this issue. But however, the circumstances within every home and the lifestyle within every home vary from person to person, and that's just the way that it is. Some people sit on their furniture more than others. Some people have pets in their home, and some don't. So the more, performance fabrics can stand up to animals because they're cleanable, but if a pet and his claws get on it and start digging on it and wearing on that fiber, it's going to fuzz and it's going to wear. And there's not a pet-proof fabric in the market, and generally that's what we see when we have customer complaints around pilling. And a lot of times there's a lot of pet hair on top of the perceived pilling issue. So it's certainly give or take, but it's really important to vacuum and get loose hair and get loose debris off of it so you can really understand what you're looking at.
Right, because we spoke about why would anybody choose a fabric that may pill? And I think you answered that by saying there's some beautiful fabrics that naturally pill, like wool. And if you love the look of wool and you want to use it, that's just a characteristic that you have to deal with. And the same with, for example, Sunbrella. Some people like, because it's got that acrylic yarn, some people like to bring it inside. Outside, you don't sit on it as much, so you don't have the pilling so much. But you were saying to me inside, that's a different story.
It is. Very rarely do people sit on their outdoor furniture as much as they sit on their indoor furniture. So understanding the performance characteristics and makeup of any performance brand, that's where it's critical. And they use that yarn, and it's a great brand and it's a great product, but it's not engineered for everyday use, such as some of the other brands that you showed earlier.
Right. Okay, seam slippage. Now, this isn't something I know a lot of you have heard about. Abrasion. That's certainly a big topic, and pilling as well. Seam slippage is something that isn't as common, but we see a lot of issues around this. Patrick, maybe you could kind of elaborate what this is.
Yeah, so basically when we see issues like in the image below, it indicates that the seam of the fabric is not engineered to hold. So it's pulling apart when you sit on it or put stress on the seam of a cushion or a casing. So oftentimes, most of the products that we sell or bring to market, performance brands, come with a latex or acrylic backing on them to provide durability and stability to the products. So a lot of products, and again, understanding specifications is key, will outline if the product has a backing or not. Anytime you're using it for upholstery, my recommendation would be to add a backing if it does not have one already. Every manufacturer that I've spoken to appreciates having a backing because the fabric doesn't move around as they're cutting, but also for the longevity of your piece of furniture and your seams, having a backing to stabilize it's very important. So that's one element or aspect, but another one is the manufacturer or the workroom you're working with. It's really important to have them upholster or sew it in a manner that's consistent with the industry standards, which are 7 seams per inch and taking the appropriate seam allowance. So if they sew the 2 pieces of fabric too close together and don't give it enough allowance to pull on it, then ultimately over time it's going to ravel and pull apart, which creates a lot of the issues that we deal with. I mentioned industry standards several times. So for everything we're going to go through, from pilling to abrasion to seam slippage or seam integrity, there are tests that all fabrics go through before they ever come to market to be available for sale. So they've all been tested. Now, I'd love to tell you that you're not ever going to have an issue or that a product's never produced incorrectly. That's not the case, but more times than not, there's an explanation or reason behind it. One can be not enough or not any backing on a multi-purpose type fabric, or not taking the appropriate allowance or using enough stitches to ensure that the fabric stays together.
That's a great explanation, and I know, a lot of people would ask, why would, if something has high abrasion, they assume that it's meant for upholstery.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not necessarily, it can be true, but if the manufacturer of that particular fabric is trying to achieve kind of a multi-purpose usage to the fabric, they won't back it, because if you back it, then you can't use it for drapery necessarily. And so, but there are some fabrics that aren't backed that have high abrasion, and those are the ones that Patrick's talking about, where you can have it backed, and we can certainly provide that service, but I know most of us in the industry can certainly provide that service. So it is something that definitely needs to be looked at. And a lot of designers don't know this until, of course, after they've discovered a problem. So it's really important to ensure that your upholsterer understands this and kind of educates you along the way as well. This isn't something that's hugely, we don't come across this a lot, but it was just kind of an interesting, as we're talking about specifications, this is one of the things that we measure as well. Can you talk about tear strength, Patrick?
Sure. So, this is another test that is run on every fabric with certain specifications that it must meet before it goes into the marketplace to be used primarily on furniture. And Really, it's measuring the amount of force or pounds it takes to pull the product apart and break the fibers. So the tenacity of the fibers, the strength of the fibers are pulled until it reaches a certain breaking point. And this is really just to ensure that after constant use, that the product's not going to elongate or break.
Right. And this kind of reminds me of back in the day when I first got into the industry, it was all about having that. I don't even know that you would know this, so I'm probably really dating myself, but the chintz, we were doing chintz on sofas. It was kind of the do-it-yourself era and the really, floral, and it was beautiful. But very soon on, you had a lot of splitting sofas, and the fabric is just kind of tearing and splitting across. And I think that would be maybe a good example of that for those of you who know what I'm talking about. Now, this is a really important one. A lot of people kind of think this is for outdoor only, but it's not. So Patrick's going to kind of enlighten us on what this is and things to look for.
Yeah, so color fastness to light is something that is really important, and as Lisa just alluded to, it's not only for outdoor fabrics or outdoor furniture. A lot of new builds have a lot of natural light and big, beautiful bay windows. And when you're talking performance, it's really important to consider all the factors and all the variables that are at play. And just because it's inside does not mean that it doesn't need to have a level of performance or fade resistance to it. Because as I tell this story often at Furniture Market in High Point. I've spoken to a variety of furniture manufacturers that have big bay windows with furniture in them to welcome guests. And after 2 to 3 weeks of that product being there and natural light pouring in, their sofas have started to fade. So it's maybe not as big a deal in a furniture showroom, but in your home, it's a really big deal. So it's important to think through all of the different performance requirements that you have based on the positioning and the setting of the furniture in your home. So every fabric that is indoor, outdoor grade or offers fade resistant technology goes through a color fastness test, and you've got a standard, and then you've got a control piece. So what you do, you put it in these chambers, and it tests every 300 hours. You take it out, you peel off another strip, you take it out, and as long as the colors are consistent, it obviously is going to meet that standard. So as you can imagine, it takes a long time to test something before you have a good feeling for if that yarn or fabric is appropriate for indoor outdoor use. But generally speaking, if you look at prints in the industry, 500 hours is about on par for what they have to offer. And I associate that with about 1 season. When we talk about color fastness, I speak in terms of seasons and years, because when you start talking about hours, hours vary depending on what part of the country you're talking about. Florida is different than North Carolina, is different than Arizona, is different than New England, and so on and so forth. So the strength of the UV rays in each part of the country are dramatically different. So prints are about 500. InsideOut performance fabrics are tested to 1,200, and it gets into different types of colors as well. Some colors that are more saturated are much more difficult to dye because they fade sooner than others. So each performance brand has their toolbox of colors based on the guarantee that they want to make with their types of products. So Belladura is right in the same category as InsideOut, maybe 1,500, and then Sunbrella, because they use the acrylic yarn, can go upwards of 2,000 hours. So again, understanding what those ratings mean, they come with different warranties, 3 years versus 5 years, and understanding what your customers' expectations are. If it's out by the pool and it's getting a ton of natural light every single day, you know, an acrylic-based product is maybe the best choice. If it's a covered patio and you want it to be a little bit more decorative and you want a different color palette, then maybe one of the other performance brands is the right way to go. But each indoor-outdoor brand goes through the testing here in yarn format and also woven fabric, just to guarantee that the claims that they're making in terms of color fastness to light are accurate.
Wow, that was wonderful. Thank you. And then we also have crocking. And I just want to point out, as we're coming to a close in the presentation, we're going to get to your questions very shortly, but we're talking about all of these things with Patrick today because just because something has a performance label on it under any one of these brands, it doesn't mean that. So you could have a fiber guard fabric with something that is, you know, 20,000 double rubs. You can have an InsideOut fabric that maybe has a 3, well, actually, no, that's probably not true, but you can have another fabric that, like Sunbrella, has a 3 or sometimes a 2 pilling rating. So you still have to look for those other things. And so as we talk about crocking, which is really important, because I know crocking with any fabric, whether it's performance or not, you know, there's 2 different types of crocking that we're talking about. One is, will the fabric crock? And we're going to explain what that means in a minute. The other one is, you know, denim and stuff on your fabric. So we're going to talk about both of those things. First, I'm going to have Patrick explain what crocking means.
Okay, so crocking is really the dye transfer from one thing to another. When you look at crocking in a fabric, it's generally an over dyed or really saturated type of color, where the yarn can't really absorb all of the dye stuffs into that product, and it runs and wears off. So you know, trying not to sound like a broken record, but there is an industry standard and test for this product that wears different fabrics and different yarns to make sure that the color doesn't release from that piece of fabric. So it certainly can happen, but certainly happens more often on more saturated shades. But where we really get a lot of questions is the crocking from really denim jeans to a white sofa. White is being asked for more than ever because of these new performance brands and performance products. But when you buy a pair of jeans now, a lot of them come with a disclaimer that they can crock. A lot of them are over dyed jeans, and it's really important to wash them before wearing them on a white sofa, and also to make sure that they're dry before getting on a sofa, because, you know, we can talk about performance fabrics and they're engineered to, you know, clean up messes and spills from everyday life. But crocking is not a stain or a spill. Crocking is the transfer of dye from something into something else, which is really, really difficult to handle, more so than spilling ketchup on your sofa. So I think in this respect, it is really important to be very careful with anytime you wear denim, especially if you have a white sofa. But also, some of the indoor-outdoor brands or performance products that are bleach cleanable give you a little bit better chance to get this scenario, to get it out of your sofa than not, because the bleach is a little bit stronger to help take that color back out of the sofa.
That's great. Thanks, Patrick. Okay, we are ready for the Q&A. Patrick, that was so comprehensive. I know that we have lots of questions here, so I'm gonna stop sharing this.
All right, easy questions first, all right?
Okay. Okay. Can you talk, about pets on furniture? So I think Bonnie, Patrick really did speak to that, but just to reiterate, Patrick, there's really no fabric that is pet proof, yeah?
You know, I think one word that we stay away from is the word proof, because nothing is foolproof or wear proof, because the environments that these products are growing in vary so greatly. They certainly are more friendly to pets than a non-performance product would be, but again, if your pet is going to, if they just get on it and lay, it's probably not a big deal. But again, with pets and depending on your lifestyle, you need to clean it more frequently than if not. But if a pet, dog or cat, um, gets their paws on it and starts rubbing on it, it's probably going to wear, regardless of what the product is. Obviously, some will perform better than others. But again, these performance products and brands add life and longevity to the fabric, and help protect and prevent these issues from happening, but certainly aren't bulletproof in any way.
Right. Question for you here from Iris. Will a fabric swatch tell us if the fabric should have a backing to avoid seam slippage? Yes, I guess is the answer, but yeah. How can she tell, just if she were to order a swatch of something, how can she tell on her own?
I think you can feel it, but some products have heavier backings than others. Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, the swatches that you send out, do they say acrylic backed or backing applied?
Yeah, we put some of the specifications on the tag of the memo, but there's obviously a lot of specifications. The memo tag would be the size of the fabric swatch if we put everything on there.
Right.
So most of it you can find online under the search of that particular fabric. It will tell you. And I think most of us are like that. I know, Krabbit, Fabric Hut, all kind of have those similar things where you can find most of that information online. And there it'll say what the seam slippage is or if the fabric's backed or not.
Okay. And yeah, if you have a question, I'm sure any customer service team could answer that really quickly. I know on specification information that we're asked to fill out, generally it asks for that. So I think that's probably information that's readily available on websites, if not on the tags.
Right. So one of the things that I noticed is with some of the outdoor brands that the colors seem to be more saturated with some than others. Like the way the yarns take the color seems to be more bold, more bright. And also some of the designs, like for example, I think with the polyolefin and or InsideOut, and actually even Belladura over this umbrella, the designs seem to be more intricate, more home, that kind of interior like. Is that because acrylic's a thicker yarn, or why is that?
No, I mean, a lot of the yarns, whether you're talking olefin or polyester or acrylic, they can be extruded and created into a variety of sizes. I mean, from filament yarns to spun yarns to novelty boucles and chenilles, they each have their palette. But I think when you talk about design, aesthetic, and color, I think it really goes back to the company heritage and understanding of the marketplace. Sunbrella is a great product and brand and has been in business for a long time. But their start and understanding of the market was in the outdoors. As performance grew, people were using it inside because of the bleach cleanability and all the other attributes that it offers. But I think InsideOut and Belladura maybe have more of a heritage or understanding in developing products for indoors that just so happen to be durable enough to go outdoors. So I think that is that's one key element of it. But there's some yarns. The InsideOut product offers multiple yarns, so it's not single fiber limited, and it's not all solution dyed product either. So it's really dyed a little bit more specifically to offer a broad color aesthetic that is a little bit more residentially focused than for outdoors. So it's not really a capabilities limitation, but the difference in the solution dyed and high energy dyed is the minimums that come along when you solution dye a yarn are so much higher than when you're package dyeing a yarn. So the flexibility to get in and out of colors is a huge advantage that InsideOut offers.
Ah, very good. Thank you. I told you this guy knows everything. um, Connie, who actually is a great friend to JF, she's a showroom in Houston. So shout out to Connie. She also has a question. We are often asked about how green performance fabrics are and the chemicals. So basically the safety of, and I guess the kind of green factor of these performance fabrics. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, and that's a great question because when people spill their wine on the swatch or the sofa and it beads up and rolls off, or you clean whatever kind of mess out of a fabric, outside of wow and people's jaw dropping, it's well, how did it do that? What makes this product do that? And it's a great question, and each performance brand goes about it in a little bit different way. So some of the brands that I mentioned earlier, where the performance is all in the yarn, such as the Sustain and such as the Fiber Guard that Lisa mentioned earlier, the performance is really built into the yarn. So it doesn't use a topical treatment on it to repel liquids and to offer cleanability. So that is a little bit more eco-focused or eco-conscious, if you will, than the topical chemistry put on a fabric. But I want to be very clear about something. Each of those brands, Crypton Home, Alta, Belladura, and Sunbrella to a degree, because they use the same type of technology, it is one of the most commonly used technologies in the world. And it's the same thing that's in your nonstick cookware and in your iPhone, used every day in a variety of different markets. And that's really the finish that's put on these products so that they repel liquids and so that they are cleanable, or performance, so to speak, from a cleanability standpoint. Belladura and Sunbrella obviously have the fade resistance built into the yarn. So the platform is yarn and finish. And then InsideOut's a little bit different from each of those other ones because the durability, fade resistance, and cleanability is in the yarn. But InsideOut's the first brand to use a PFC-free finish on the product. So it's going to repel your liquids, but the rest of the work is being done by the yarn. So it's really the most eco-conscious performance product available in the market that offers a PFC-free technology on it that doesn't sacrifice performance and still gives you the same decorative aesthetic that you want. So it's something that the market's definitely demanding and asking for. Sustainable and eco-conscious are certainly at the top of mind of a lot of consumers. And I think when you look at home furnishings and home textiles, this market is not big enough to create a movement toward sustainability or eco-conscious, such as a major sector like apparel. So a lot of major apparel brands are moving from this C6-based chemistry or technology to PFC-free technology for their outerwear to repel the liquids, because just like anything, technology fuels innovation, and as it continues to get better, you're able to use it on a variety of different types of products. And InsideOut was probably the first one to the residential market.
Oh, that is just great information. And somebody asked, is this going to be recorded? And yes, the answer is yes. Are you kidding? All this great information, and we definitely recorded it, and we'll be sharing it with you. So just one final question, and well, actually two. You talked about, lipstick and mustard being more difficult to remove. And you had talked about, I know in previously we've had conversations, you say some of that's due to the oil that's specifically in liquid. Is that?
Yeah, oil-based stains are more difficult than water-based stains. And again, I would default and defer to each of the cleaning instructions associated with each brand because the fiber contents are so different. But I would encourage everyone to kind of take a step back, take a deep breath before trying to attack a spill or a stain, especially if it's one that's difficult, because rinsing and repeating and letting the soap or detergent or bleach kind of do its job and break it down is going to allow for better results. Because if you attack it and try to rub it out or overdo it, it is a decorative textile at the end of the day, and it can fuzz up and wear and create more issues if you're not careful and delicate with it. But one other thing is you're spot cleaning one area. It's important to go not just one circular spot, but from the welt to the welt or the side of the cushion to the other side of the cushion. Because if you haven't cleaned your sofa in a while and you just clean one spot, it's going to make your sofa look funny, because the rest of it's going to be a little bit dirty or dingy, and you're going to have a nice clean white spot in the cleaned area. So that's why it's important to just offer continual maintenance to the sofa in terms of vacuuming and cleaning.
That's great information. And also, you talking about that reminds me when we talk about fiber content with some of these performance fabrics. I mean, some of these performance fabrics have viscose in them. Can you chat just a little bit about that? Because, that's been one of the biggest problems I would say we have, where they say the stain hasn't come clean, but it's really because the pile has been distorted. So.
Yeah, rayon is not a fan of water. So it certainly can water spot. So it's important to not oversaturate and try to over clean the fabric, so to speak. I think less is more. A lot of times I know that runs counter to how a lot of us, me included, think when I try to clean something. Just throw everything at it and let's see what happens. But it's really important to follow the instructions step by step, because something like viscose or something like linen naturally are much more delicate than synthetic fibers such as polyester and olefin. And then pile fabrics are unique. Whether it's velvet or whether it's chenille, it can distort the appearance if part of the pile is disoriented from another part. So it's important that the direction is going all in the same direction, so that it doesn't appear to be shifting colors, so to speak.
Right. Thank you. Okay, so I have one final question for you, which is, when are you coming back? I know that people who miss this, we're going to be sending it to a lot of our customers, and they're going to be so sorry they missed it, and they're going to have tons of questions. So I won't pin you to a date now, but you have to come back. I know there's so much more we can chat about, and Patrick, you're just so knowledgeable. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it. I know our guests here really appreciate it. And thank you all for joining us. I know it's a crazy time, kids getting back to school and us all trying to get back to work, but I think these moments are really valuable to take an hour and to learn. It's going to help you in the long run as designers, help you educate your customers. And as I said, really help kind of take some of that confusion away and ultimately save everybody money by making the right choice the first time. So Patrick, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun. Always great to spend time with you, and thank you for everybody joining. And you just let me know when, and I'll be there. Hopefully we can do it in person next time.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, take care. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining today.